Okay, it's perfect. Okay, I will make a full screen so I can't see anything, just in case you need to shout if you need anything or if something is not visible. Anyway, I'm super excited and super grateful also for this invitation for your local community and that I am able to share my insights about portfolios. Before, maybe let me briefly introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I'm the founder of the UX Portfolio course. You can find it at uxportfolio.co. I came to UX design from architecture. So if there are any architects here, hi, welcome. I've been in UX design for 6 or actually 7 years. I've been coaching designers for a while as well. And I post a bit of my POVs online about design, portfolio, and other stuff. But that's not the main point, actually, because probably you want to hear more about why I'm even speaking about portfolio. So I will be not speaking just from my own experiences. The insights that I will show you in this short time will be based on the research that I've done about portfolios for my portfolio course, the surveys, the talks, the interviews that I did, as well as some analysis. I got pretty passionate about this topic, apparently, though my first experiences with creating portfolios weren't that exciting, as you may guess. But right now, even though that it still can be a bit messy, I really love digging deeper into this topic because there's a lot of things that you can talk about when it comes to portfolios. So how we are going to go about this talk today? First of all, I will start with maybe reminding you or getting a bit of a broader understanding of why portfolio topic is so problematic for many of us. I think as designers, we need to know the problem first before we can actually create a proper solution, because sometimes with portfolios we forget about this, that we are designers, and I think we are missing because of this. We will talk also about the aha moment that can help you in the process of creating a UX portfolio. I will of course walk you through my portfolio process that I teach in the course. We'll sum up this session with the key learnings. I will tell you where you can find more, and of course we'll do a Q&A, because I know that usually everyone has a lot of very precise contextual questions about portfolios, so I will be happy to answer them in this time that we have. And of course you can always reach out to me after the talk. Anyway, let's get started. So portfolio problems. As designers, we need to know problems. So what's going on with this? I know we have different people here, so I didn't know how to structure this. So I will go about both seniority levels for junior and experienced designers. So if you're a junior designer, if you're at the beginning of your career, you are probably after UX education, you experience your first UX projects, first UX portfolio, first rejections, successes, right? These are the contextual thing about juniors. When it comes to the more experienced folks, you know a bit about how UX works in a real business context, right? We know that there are a lot of business challenges, that process can be messy, which of course can impact tremendously our portfolio stories and all the stress that we usually get when we need to actually write a story from a messy project. For a junior designer, the common portfolio problem usually, of course, this is just not for everyone, but usually it can be a lack of experience and skills. Like you can see, it's not a high quality. I was missing a lot of different skills, visual skills, presentation skills. I didn't know anything about storytelling. And of course, I was lacking experiences. But if you're an experienced designer, the common portfolio problem, well, they're not so like one common problem for more experienced folks, because it all depends. On the left, you can see examples of different portfolios that designers create. And as you can see, all of them look differently. The presentation is different, the stories are different, the way how the portfolio is designed is different. And those people, every designer can experience different problems along the way because of the fact that, for instance, they have different career paths. So imagine that you're a designer, you have worked in B2B, you have some B2B projects, maybe enterprise, maybe you have worked on one project for 4 years, you don't have any B2C and mobile app experience. Whereas there's another designer, designer B, who actually has this experience. What does it mean when it comes to the portfolio creation process? Well, for a designer A, we can assume, of course, this is just an example, that if this designer has been working on some B2B projects, They might have strong systemic thinking skills, maybe some strong web responsive platform design skills, SaaS design skills. Whereas if you have worked on B2C project, more mobile app design, you probably are good on designing mobile app, right? You might have stronger craft skills, since those mobile applications as well as B2C products usually are more heavy on this, right? So these are the two differences. And those different career paths comes with variety of problems when it comes to portfolio creation process. Because, for instance, imagine that designer A suddenly wants to go and follow a path of designer B, designing those mobile apps and B2C applications. The question would be then for this designer A coming from B2B, okay, what can you show to prove that you can actually design a B2C product and a mobile application, right? The same comes if the designer B would like to go and switch to B2B as designer A, right? So those different career paths can come with some challenges. We might, for instance, have strong research skills, strategic skills, information architecture skills, but we might not have strong skills on visual design, for instance, right? And the portfolio is some sort of a mix of everything. And the visual design, for instance, also needs to be there somehow so that we can actually present our skills and create this good first impression. But also, if you would like to go and apply for a role where the requirement for visual design skills is high, then the question is, okay, now I need to learn visual design skill. What should I do? How should I approach the portfolio creation process? So those different career paths bring some challenges, but also advantages, right? Because if you have worked in some places, if you have experienced something, you are far more ahead compared to some other folks. Another topic area that can cause some issues for you in a portfolio creation process are actually your career goals. Depending on where you want to go next, what is your next ideal or the next job that you want to apply for or the next client that you want to work with, this can cause some issues as well. Like if you have experience in B2B, for instance, and you want to go to B2C, now you are missing those B2C experiences and you start questioning your portfolio, what to show, how to show it, how can I prove that I actually can do this job that I want to apply for right now. So this is the second bucket. The third bucket are actually market needs. So we have our experiences, our skills, our experiences. We have the plans, the career goals, and we have also market needs. So for instance, right now, we are in the era of AI. It's so trendy, so popular that there are lots of companies already who require from you to actually use AI on the job to prove that you can, for instance, be more creative or more efficient using AI. Maybe there are some folks here who want to actually build AI products, right? So these are all the requirements that we need to take into consideration, as well as market situation in general. Like, what are the other designers who apply for the role or will be applying for the role I want to apply for as well? Our competitors. Actually, this is the best benchmark if you want to look at any portfolios, look at your direct competitors first. Then we have designers' constraints, and those constraints can come from those three buckets, but they can also come from a poor situational thing or personal thing. Like, for instance, I remember once in my career, I found a job offer somewhere around Friday. It is a real story, by the way. On Friday, I remember, and the deadline for applications was on Monday. As you can guess, I didn't have an updated portfolio. I had this time constraint, but I really, really wanted to apply because I really thought, looking at this job description, that this is a good fit for me and that this was really a very interesting place to work in. So I spent Saturday and Sunday to work on my portfolio, and the trade-off decision that I had to make because of this time constraint was that, okay, I am not going to update my website portfolio. I will just turn this off and I will send a PDF portfolio version because it was quicker for me back then. But of course, constraints can be different. Then we have also a thing that we all usually complain about, which is No surprise in this, right? Different portfolio opinions. Okay, this hiring manager has this portfolio presentation on this portfolio format. I have seen some opinions about portfolio formats as well, or this way of talking about your projects or about your designer profile, whereas another hiring manager or recruiter prefers something different. And what can we do with this, right? So this is
Thank you. Appreciate it.
this is
Great
another
Monday to you too.
this is another problem that we can experience. And the sixth bucket is actually your mindset. Your mindset that can cause problems with the portfolio creation process. It can cause, for instance, that you won't finish this portfolio, or that you will be so scared of launching your portfolio because of maybe some imposter syndrome, or maybe the perfectionism, all the things that we usually stress about, which are very natural. But these things also cause some issues, right? Because if you're not iterating on your portfolio, you are not learning. If you're not launching your portfolio, you are not learning and getting feedback about your portfolio, so you are not improving. So these are the areas that can create some issues for you. So we just came from actually having one problem, creating a portfolio, to actually realizing, okay, there can be more things that we can be concerned about when it comes to portfolio creation process. So now you know that why maybe some of you are a bit stressed about the portfolio creation process, may find this process difficult and unclear, because there are a lot of issues in this process that we even are not aware of. But we are here for some solutions. So let me start with the aha moments that I think could help you, first of all, kick off this portfolio creation process that might maybe change the way how you think about your own portfolio and how you shape this portfolio. The first one is realizing that you're actually the boss of your portfolio, that you own this product. Your portfolio is your product, that you lead this project, that you actually decide what to do and how to present it. Of course, you can't ignore your users, hiring managers and recruiters. You can't ignore the market needs, of course, but ultimately you are someone who decides. You are a decision maker person. You are a boss, product owner. You make this final decision. So whenever you get a lot of different opinions about your portfolio or different reactions, it's actually on you to decide what you're going to implement, what you think is aligned with your vision for your portfolio, for your next role, for your tone of voice, and for your presentation. The second thing is that it's also on you to define this product, this portfolio. You decide, you're a decision person, you're the boss, but you're also a creator, a builder, a marketer, a salesperson in this. All of those roles, you cover them all, So you need to decide what to show, how to show it, how you will shape your portfolio, how you will sell your skills, your positioning. So some things you might not show because you might decide that, okay, this is not something that represents my designer profile or shows my unique value proposition in the best way. I'm not going to show it, but instead I will show this. Or, okay, instead of creating a list of case studies, maybe I will create snapshots or something like this. Or instead of creating a website, I will create a presentation because I don't have time. Something like this. It's on you to decide and to frame it and to shape it. The story, the way how you speak about your projects, the way how you present your visuals, and also how you talk about everything. But it's also worth remembering that it's on you to take risks, and you shouldn't forget about this, because sometimes when we are in this process of portfolio creation, we are so afraid of making trade-off decisions. This is actually the most typical and the most popular. Sometimes I feel like, I've heard this from many designers, that we're afraid of not showing and talking about everything because we are afraid that we will miss an opportunity. Maybe someone will not consider us for a role because we didn't show something. This is very typical and common stress. I would encourage you to change this thinking if you have something like this, if you think in the similar way, to actually take risks and actually be super intentional about the trade-off decisions that you make. As I told you with my career example, I decided on a portfolio format because of the time constraint. And I know that some people just don't value this format, even though I don't think it's a problem for myself, for instance. Some might not think that the PDF version is something we should use as designers since we create digital products. We have awesome no-code tools and AI tools that can help us prototype our portfolios. When you become aware, you will just need to handle this. Okay, I'm not going to send a website version of my portfolio right now because I don't have time, but maybe for the next or the third or the fourth iteration, I will do it. And the last one, despite you being the boss of your portfolio, despite you acting in every role in this product creation process as a marketer, salesperson, writer, and everyone, you need to still keep an open mind and you need to adapt depending on what the market needs. If a role requires, for instance, some visual skills, you might need to adjust. If a portfolio needs to create a good first impression, right? And you are super bad at visual design, you need to probably take a step back and think, okay, what should I, because you want to grow, you want to get a new job maybe. So you need to take a step back and think broadly, keep an open mind, have a growth mindset, and actually think, okay, would it be better for me to actually show some visuals, brush up those visuals or not? Will it be more beneficial for me and my career growth or not? This is how I think about this process, and those mindset shifts for me and for many of the designers I teach actually it's a very good moment of realization and how we approach our portfolios. What about the process, you may ask? There are, of course, different ways of building a portfolio. We now have AI tools, so this may change. I'm still testing different tools, so I'll not go into detail with this. Of course, you can ask questions about this. I can share the insights that I've gained so far, but the process is still relevant right now, and you will see in a sec why. First of all, you need to treat your portfolio like any UX project. I think this is something we sometimes forget as designers when we start redesigning our portfolios. Suddenly we don't remember that we have users like hiring managers that we can benchmark against competitors, and we don't need to look at every competitor somewhere online, but we can just look at direct, indirect for some few inspirations, that we need to know the market needs and that we can have constraints, and we should be aware of those constraints to actually make better design decisions in our portfolio. These are the things that can settle you well in this portfolio creation process initially in this process. When you're all good with your mindset approach, you acknowledge that you need to design your portfolio, that you are a designer of this product. The key point in this process, no matter how you are going to build your portfolio, is to actually be strategic about this. One of the methods I teach designers in my course is to define designer profile. Designer profile is positioning. It's like your personal design brand. It's your tone of voice, how you present your projects in your portfolio. It's this picture, this first impression that we get about you and the message that we get about you. Based on this, we can actually evaluate, okay, this designer is relevant for the role I am hiring for instance. Designer profile, the process of defining your designer profile, for me, I teach designers a framework that I call F framework, which stands for past, present, and future. And let me walk you briefly, quickly through this framework. So first of all, you start with analyzing your past experiences, like a designer, like a researcher. You analyze your skills, you analyze what you have done, in which industries you have worked, on which type of projects, right? What are your skills as well? This is the first thing. So this is the past. And then you go to the present. So in the present, you analyze your current skills, your current traits, characteristics, everything around it. You can do a skills mapping exercise to figure out what are your specific design skills. You can also do some personality tests to actually figure out who you are as a person, what type of work setup and way of working you prefer. You can also interview your colleagues, people you have worked with, even your friends or some close people that know you, to actually figure out yourself. And because this will give you like a bigger perspective of who you are. But the design skills, of course, if you apply for a design role, are the most important. And then when you have those two things, you need to think about the future. So you need to define your goals, because the best portfolios actually are created by connecting you as a designer, your experiences, your skills, and so on, with your goals, with this job that you want to apply for, so that you don't target every hiring manager, every position, every industry. And when you connect all of this, you can actually create your elevator pitch. Elevator pitch is something you've probably heard about. It's like this message that designers usually include in the first section of the homepage. This is, for instance, an example. I know that Oshi's portfolio is not live anymore, but I really liked her one-liner. But you can go and write longer stories if you want, but of course it can be lengthy. The goal for creating this pitch, this message in your portfolio, is to give a clear understanding and a message to communicate who you are as a designer. From defining your designer profile, everything else is connected with this, like your project selection, your story selection. This is the next step that is also about being strategic. The most common approach seen with portfolio creation was, I need to create a portfolio and everyone writes case studies and put the list of case studies in a portfolio. Whereas it doesn't need to be like this. Many times folks think one work project that you have been working on in your organization equals one portfolio story, one case study. It doesn't need to be like this, because you can break down one project story into a few projects depending on your strategy, what you want to highlight, which problems and solutions you want to highlight, which message you want to share with a hiring manager. So actually, it's not usually advised to talk about everything in your portfolio, because you've all experienced a lot of things. UX projects usually have a lot of things in it, a lot of problems, challenges you have probably solved. For instance, I don't know, maybe you have worked in low UX maturity organization and you were responsible also for improving the process. I would probably not mix this challenge with the product design. I would probably create two separate stories for clarity. So this is on you to decide what you talk about and how you break down. You need to think about this information architecture of your stories as well, and navigation as well. This is very common that sometimes designers overcomplicate in portfolios. But when you select those stories, think about different criteria. For instance, one common criterion for project selection for a portfolio is similarity relevance. This is a very common one. The thing I talked about with designer A and B, that there is a designer with B2B experience who wants us to go to B2C. Then the question is, okay, I don't have any B2C projects. What should I do? Because to show that you're similar, that you're relevant, you need to show that you have experience, that you have tackled a similar challenges. So that a hiring manager, a recruiter can see, okay, this person can handle our challenges. And this is the most common challenge. It doesn't mean, of course, that you won't be able to handle the challenges, even though that you haven't solved similar issues before. But unfortunately, this is the way how hiring still works and how the scanning process looks like. There are, of course, other criteria. Like I told you, for instance, if you have solved different challenges in a project, from processes to product design, you can split those stories into a few stories in your portfolio. If you have, for instance, worked on design system at the same time designing something, redesigning a product, these can be also two different stories. Why? Because it would be easier for hiring managers to see in your portfolio, to scan it. So think beyond projects. Then outline stories. You can think about a case study. If you go for some case studies in your portfolio, my easiest way of thinking about the story outline for case studies is actually to think about clearly communicating the problem, communicating the design changes I have made with the reasoning of why I have made those changes, and of course, wrapping this up with the retrospective. Usually, we all start with the summaries, and this is something I called snapshots. I talk about this concept in my course. The snapshot, it can be like a summary from your project, but you can also create snapshots from variety of other things, like for instance, a snapshot of your skills, a snapshot of your career. There are really different ways of thinking about the stories in your portfolio. So think beyond projects and think beyond case studies as well. And when you have mapped this out all, when you have your designer profile, you more or less know what type of stories you want to talk about, how you want to talk about this. You are at the stage of writing stories right now. So I usually start from writing my stories from the elevator pitch, figuring out my projects before I actually go and look for a portfolio template or redesigning the visual part, because it's easier, fast. You need to be more strategic fast before actually going into those nitty-gritties. So first of all, don't write reports, don't create very lengthy portfolio stories, because we all know that hiring managers are busy, so we need to optimize for time to value, because it's on you to communicate how awesome you are early on, because no one will wait, no one will ask you to send more files. Make your story about you. So for instance, a common challenge is that many designers write, we designed, we developed, we decided. You can, of course, use this statement as well, but more and more hiring managers find it's difficult to actually figure out what was your job, what was your role in this project when we write like this. So change it to I did it, I decided. Make sure you use story outline. If you, for instance, write, no matter if you create just snapshots like a short summaries or case studies, I usually try to map them out somehow, for instance, listing headings of those snapshots or listing headings of sections in a case study that will then create a story, so that I can make sure that everything is coherent and makes sense. Make sure that you explain your design decisions at least in a few places, because our job is actually about this, so that you don't create a dribble portfolio or, I don't know, a report portfolio. So these are the two problems that I usually see. And show your achievements. So impact, metrics, if you show any numbers, make sure that you actually are aware of how those numbers were made up, how they are connected to design, because at some point hiring managers may ask you about this. Make sure that your stories have start and end, like we were taught at school. And ultimately, of course, make it appealing, because we are all aesthetically biased. No matter what is your role and where you're going to apply, you don't need to create animations, interactions, depending, of course, on your role, but make sure everything is designed, that you take care of the visual part so that it works to your advantage, that the presentation is high quality, that it looks modern. If you have some complex diagrams for a quick portfolio review, the initial stage, it's very difficult to actually understand those complex customer journeys. So try to simplify this. You can go deeper into those stories on a case study presentation. And remember that the portfolio is never done. And this is actually a marathon, not a sprint. So be prepared for this. You can think about an MVP version of your portfolio and take it from there. Or don't put pressure on yourself. I know there are a lot of beautiful, flashy portfolios out there that can cause some imposter syndrome. But make sure that you actually make a progress, because I don't want you to get stuck in this. Well, let's summarize this. You need to know your situation, right? You need to know who you are as a designer, what are your constraints, what are your career goals before you actually go into the portfolio creation process. You need to set up your boss mindset, but of course, don't forget about taking some risks. You need to strategically approach your portfolio creation process, meaning that you need to have those goals. You need to figure out where you want to go next. You need to know yourself, and you need to define this designer profile. Write down this few words about yourself. Be precise when you do it. And make sure that every decision that you make in your portfolio is intentional. So for instance, the moment where you communicate something is also intentional, and then you think about the whole user journey, the journey of a hiring manager through your portfolio. Practice portfolio skills. A lot of those things comes to storytelling skills, writing skills, presentation skills, visual design, maybe web design skills if you go about creating a website, right? So these are all skills that we sometimes forget about when we create our portfolios. And of course, keep going, keep iterating, start from some summaries, then build on top of this, iterate, change, and see how it works. If you want to learn more about this process in details and get some examples, I have prepared for you a dedicated discount for my course that will expire at the end of this month. You can just use code Austin50 and you will get a course percent discounted. The course gives you a lifetime access with updates. There will soon come some AI updates as well about portfolios. So yeah. But I think you've been waiting for some Q&A sessions, so let's get into it. These are the places where you can find me. If we don't manage to answer all the questions, or if you want to say hi or ask about the course or anything else, you can always reach out to me. I always reply. So maybe we can take some questions.
If you want to either post your question in the chat or raise your hand.
No questions about portfolios.
I think it's just that it's early in the morning for us. I have a question. A question that I get a lot with my mentees is, how do you decide what story you put in the portfolio versus what stories you save for the presentation part of the interview process?
That's a good question. So for a portfolio review, I usually advise to select stories or write about and present things that will create this good first impression, because in the portfolio review, we optimize for time to value. Usually hiring managers don't have so much time for reviewing a portfolio. This is like a quick scroll, quick glance at the portfolio. And so we need to, for instance, see the value of a designer very quickly. These things can be done, for instance, through sharing your achievements, sharing your impact, through communicating clearly your designer profile, so that the hiring manager can quickly verify, okay, this is a designer I'm looking for. They have this experience, they have these skills. This is a good designer. I can talk with this designer. These are the things that I usually think about. Usually, like for instance, what I mentioned about the visuals, I try to avoid showing very complex visuals in the online portfolio, this portfolio version that you send for a portfolio review, because they might be very difficult for quick scanning, for an understanding, for the clarity. The more simple, the better, the more precise, the better as well. So this is how I think about prioritization. And of course, this needs to be combined with your profile and your goals, so that it can be strategic, because you don't need to talk about everything, either on the initial portfolio review nor on this portfolio presentation.
I have one more question and then we'll get to Claire's question.
Yes.
I know we have a couple of researchers on the call. How do you suggest they make, or how visual do you think UX researchers need to make their portfolios?
Yeah, I actually chatted with many researchers recently, because I know I'm a designer, so just saying, but I've chatted with some researchers about this. And to be honest, I think the approach is similar, in a sense that maybe your focus, because we as designers, we need to show the proof that we can do the design job to design, right? That we can actually handle this design stuff, create great products. For researchers, your job is different. So I think I would first of all focus on this. And when it comes to a visual presentation, maybe can look at other roles. Like imagine a salesperson presenting some product features to a potential client. They always have some visuals. They don't present just text. They don't just speak without any visual support. And this is purely because we are all visual people. Like even if maybe someone prefers to listen or to read, visuals, we are aesthetically biased. Visuals are more clear usually if done well, right? So in that context, I would probably balance the text and visuals somehow, in the same way as designers do it. Just make sure the stories focus on your core job to be done and on your skills. You can use some templates. I recommend Framer templates. You can look for portfolio templates, of course, but to avoid repetition, I would encourage you to look for portfolio template, maybe landing pages templates. You can mix them. You can just make sure the portfolio looks good, is designed well. It doesn't need to have any flashy animations or something like this. And if you're afraid of showing visuals because you have not worked on the design part, you can always show a few visuals and credit or link to a person who have worked on this visual. So this is definitely something I would do. And if you have research insights, you can also think about different way of presentation. So for instance, you don't necessarily need to just focus on pure description, because it might end up like a very heavy report. And also this reviewing process can be more difficult, even though that it's a UX research role. It might help you be more competitive if you create more scannable and easy to review a portfolio. So with the insights, for instance, I encourage you to think about different presentation format. Maybe you can use a visual to support this somehow. Maybe you can play with a visual hierarchy and write shortly and precisely and directly. Maybe you can prioritize just relevant insights so that it doesn't end up looking like a long report. If you need or want to add the report, I have one suggestion. Try to think about portfolio in a layering method. So first of all, start with this top most important element that sells you as a researcher, as a designer, and then build on top of this. So you have mentioned some achievements, then can you prove it somehow? So you show how you have done it. And then if there is more stuff, because you are a researcher, you have made those awesome reports, you can attach them additionally as a hyperlink, as a additional thing to your portfolio website. This is something I have seen, and some designers and researchers do it. So maybe this can help as well. Okay, can you offer an advice on the about page and personalizing your homepage so you stand out? Awesome question. So basically let me start maybe from personalization of the homepage, because I feel like this is more important than the About Me page. Generally, I think my approach, and the approach that I always encourage other folks to follow, is to prioritize the way how you work on your portfolio as well, so that you actually get those results and have the most important stuff first before going into some gritties, like About Me page, for instance. Because projects and skills are definitely more important, because they are the proof that you can do the job well compared to the About Me page. So I would definitely start from personalizing and designing the homepage, because this is the top level thing, the first entry place for a user, for hiring manager, like the doors, right? The welcoming page. If they don't pass those doors, they will not see your case study, About Me page, and other stuff. Now the question is how to personalize your homepage. I will tell you my strategy. I usually don't start from scratch. Right now, especially, we have all those beautiful templates. Some are free, some are not. I usually pick up those templates. Sometimes I buy a template if I find something interesting, and then I mix them. So for instance, I want my project snapshots to be like this, maybe in the bento grid. So I find a nice bento grid somewhere. So I take this section to my portfolio website, and I do it with everything. And then I sometimes redesign a layout. I see how it looks. I go back and forth between my stories and the visuals and the presentation, and I style it. And the styling itself depends on, first of all, you as a designer, as a researcher, what type of visual presentation. It's like a brand thing. So I wouldn't overcomplicate this. For instance, some designers try to create some logos. Most of them look so-so. I usually go for a simple name and surname. I would rather focus on making sure that everything looks good, is aligned. You have a very clear visual hierarchy. The website, this is a website that it's responsive, that it's accessible. These are the things that I take care of first. And then when it comes to the styling, I feel like about my brand, like what is my, I don't know, what type of visual presentation would show me as a designer? How can I show the taste that I think is high quality and good right now? These are the things I think about. I, of course, iterate on this, test it, see how it looks. Another thing that you can think about when you personalize your homepage is, for instance, to think about, okay, where I'm going to apply. Am I going to apply to a place that actually values playful design or something like this, or not? Or maybe they might not value playful design, but I want to stand out and combine this somehow. For this, I also, of course, go and check what are competitors, what they do. So designers who apply or work in companies I want to work for, or those designers, this is the closest benchmark. This is how I go about personalization. Sometimes I write down some keywords that represent me as a designer. I go back to my designer profile and I think about, okay, I don't know, maybe I am very good at craft. I am going to apply for an interaction design role, or the role that I am going to apply for requires some interaction animation design skills. This means that I should probably show it somehow, try to make it more playful because this is interactive. Or maybe if this is more about information architecture that I want to highlight, maybe I make sure the structure of my portfolio is nailed. This is like beautiful. The stories, the outline is amazing as well. The navigation works perfectly. And I try to find maybe some emotional words also to describe me as a designer, and what type of design styles can reflect this. Of course, you can also look at some trends that right now are, for instance, I don't know, some designers right now try to go into this old UI style thing, like, I don't know, retro style. You can also think about those things as well, but these are all those bits and pieces that you should take into consideration when personalizing your homepage. And when it comes to About Me page, When it comes to an About Me page, I honestly don't have one. I had it when I was doing some PDF portfolios. Right now, I'm actually redesigning my portfolio and I probably won't have it. But if I would have to, and I would decide to have my About Me page, I would try to highlight things that are relevant for the role. So for instance, let's say that you want to apply for a role at Spotify. You might want to highlight your passion for music, for example. I know sometimes people highlight some random things, and this is okay as well to show your personality, but also I wouldn't over communicate. Those hiring managers don't have time. Of course, many of them want to see your personality, but I would be very intentional about this, also about the pictures and everything. Try to be strategic about this because, don't waste their time. So if you have About Me page, think about how to show better your personality, your vibe, your interest, so that they can see, oh, okay, this is the person who's actually passionate about this topic. And this adds actually then to the value that you can provide to the table, I think. So these are my tips.
Nicholas has a question about whether or not you should maintain your portfolio when you're currently employed.
Yes, I know, it's so painful. My strategy for this is that sometimes I don't do it. I think most of us don't do it. But at least the thing that I would advise you maybe to do is to actually document everything. Imagine you were laid off, you lost access to all the files, all the information. Now what you can do. Of course, you can talk with your ex-colleagues, boss, beg for like some access, but you probably want to avoid this. So try to make sure that first of all, you save files that you can save, the Figma files, the research reports, whatever you worked on. I have my dedicated Google Drive folder for this, and this is the easy thing. You can regularly update the file and save it. Then I also have something like Bragg document. And throughout my career, I was updating this. I have been updating this Bragg document in different ways. When I had more time, I was writing some weekly stories that what I have accomplished in the week in this project, what I have decided. Sometimes I even copied some screenshots just for the context so that I remember the design decisions. Of course, I encourage you to actually note maybe down some design decisions in the file so that you don't need to note it in this document. But I have like a list, the database in Notion, where I have my projects with top level information like impact, the timeline, my role, the team, and some stories inside this. Sometimes their stories are more rich, sometimes less. So this is my way of approaching this. I know that if you, for instance, have a live design website or the PDF, you can always, if you find this find time, it's of course amazing to update the visual part regularly. And if you have a new project that you want to update, definitely I would do it, especially in this current market that is a bit shaky. Definitely I would encourage you to do it. Sometimes it's even about creating a snapshot or something like this. Or maybe you are interested into just experimenting because you want to, I don't know, maybe brush up your web design skills or brush up your storytelling and writing. You can treat it as an exercise as well. But I think the list of projects and documentation, saving files is probably the most important. I can see a follow-up question. What happened? Do you ask for permission to copy them? Yeah, depends. For instance, depends if I have depends on my contract and NDA. If I have a strict NDA, or this is like a very safety or whatever high risk project, then I need to think about it, what I can save and what I can upload to my personal computer. For instance, if you are on the job right now and your projects are under NDA, I would definitely negotiate what you can show in your portfolio at this stage, before you will actually lose your job, before you will change the job and you will say, okay, I can't show anything in my portfolio. So I would definitely ask for permission at this stage if this would be the thing. There's another question. With AI taking over many aspects of design, should we pivot and showcase mid-journeys prompting skills that are supplementary skills, custom GPT skills? Very good question. I haven't updated my presentation yet on the course about this, but I've been experimenting with this, and I think we are heading over into this direction. Of course, it depends on the role, but I think more and more companies might require from you to show actually those AI skills. There may be two considerations here. First of all, showing just that you use AI for improving efficiency or creativity in a design process. And the second consideration is that maybe if you want to apply for a role where you will be designing an AI tool, an AI product. So I would think about those two scenarios. Depending on those scenarios, I would approach them differently. But for the scenario one, I would probably start to think about how I can, first of all, incorporate those things into my design process. Right now, for instance, for me, it's mostly testing because we are at this stage where everyone is still lost and feel uncertain about what to use. But then in a portfolio story, how I would mention about this, first of all, I would avoid focusing just on tools. So of course you can mention that you have used this tool like Midjourney, custom like GPT or I don't know, Flora or whatever. Of course you can mention this, but I would focus more on, okay, why I have decided to use, I don't know, custom GPT or Midjourney in this moment of a process and how the process or the product benefited from using this. Maybe it was for efficiency, for speeding up something, or maybe it was because you wanted to focus on the creative part and you didn't want to spend time on drawing, designing the basic thing that would look similar to the common mental models and patterns that users have. So I would try to always explain somehow what was the reasoning behind this, so that it's not just blindly saying, yeah, I used this and that, yeah, blah, 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 and this will sell. It will not, probably, because the core part is actually to be intentional about why I am deciding to use AI, if this is beneficial for business, for the process, for users, if this gives some benefits. So this is my way of thinking about this. And I would try to frame the statement, the sentence, the paragraph about this in that way. And then I would add tooling as well. We have more questions. What are some effective portfolio strategies for juniors designers seeking the first job, especially if they have limited experience and haven't yet focused on a specific industry? A good question. My strategy is to focus on the process is the same. I would be still intentional about my profile. I would use my transferable skills no matter where you're coming from. For instance, when I was transitioning from architecture, I was highlighting the design thinking process skills, the design craft, the stakeholders management thing. You have probably something like this already. So this is the thing I would definitely think about. Secondly, I would think about, okay, maybe I have worked already in an industry and I can work in this industry as a designer. For instance, let's say you have worked in fintech or healthcare, maybe as a customer support person. You have probably an expertise already, somehow, like you know the industry a bit. So you can also take advantage of this situation and use it, and then maybe target those organizations in this industry, and then create projects, even conceptual, for this specific situations, for this specific industry. The third thing is to think about the passion. If you don't have an experience, you have interests and there are market needs. So I would probably balance those things. I would think, okay, which industry passionates me about the most, which products I would like to create, which problems I would like to solve, and if there is a role for this. If there are companies who actually create this type of products, if there are companies who actually work with designers, researchers on this. So this is how I would approach this. Unless you might want to take on a next level for creating projects for your portfolio and actually find concrete organizations, products that you can actually find a challenge there for users or for growing the business and actually run a quick redesign, add it to your portfolio, position yourself for this place and send over your application. Right now it's very difficult, I know, especially for junior people. So I think being even more strategic, being even more precise and even more intentional about connecting those dots yourself, your experiences, skills, passions with what you show within your portfolio and the job, it would be easier for hiring manager or potential client, or I don't know, if you apply for a smaller organization, to actually see that you can be the person who actually can help this business grow. So you need to think about the business POV in this as well. Hope that answered your questions.